Are the dirtiest businesses out there the most profitable? Today, that is the exact question that we're answering because our inclination is telling us yes. But we're going to break down 3 or 4 different dirty industries, go through the average profit margin you can expect from them. And we're actually going to break down a business that we see for sale online right now in that industry and what they're looking to sell for, just to give you an idea of what kind of money you can make in these industries.
Yeah, I was looking through some posts today by some people, and somebody on LinkedIn was posting about that. Kind of the old boring business wave is now so overhyped and kind of over talked about that now those quote boring ones are now like the standard and actually the most quote sexy ones to look at.
HVAC, electrical, plumbing, the trades, they're sexy.
They are now, yeah. And his point was that he would ask entrepreneurs, "Hey, how about a porta-john business?" And they would unanimously say no. Ew, what? No. Meanwhile, the profitability of one of those businesses is unreal because, as everybody knows, if you Google a business for sale, and you maybe find 1 or 2 listings tops across the country, that normally means that the money is so good they never want to leave them.
It's a great point. And I think because people shy away from these businesses and just less people are willing to get involved with them, that means, what do we know about the market? It's a game of supply and demand. So the demand is there for these things, right? There's porta potties needed all the time. There's, there's septic tanks that need to be cleaned out. There's some other industries we're going to cover that I'm not going to spoil. There's demand for these things. They need to happen. When not a lot of people are willing to get involved with them, that means there's not enough supply to service the demand. So when that's out of whack, when there's more demand than there is supply, that means the ones who have the supply get to dictate a higher price, as long as it's within something that the customer can afford. I mean, really, for some of the stuff, septic tank especially, you have to get that fixed if you have a problem. And so if your only choice is to get it fixed, and there's more demand than there is supply, you as the customer, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. And that means that whoever's doing it is going to make a lot of profit margin.
Yeah, and realistically, when you're looking at a business like this where there are not a lot of them going up for sale, it's either because people aren't, they're just leaving them or they're selling them off. You really do understand that, like, if it's a niche that is a very concentrated and needed one like this, and now I'm not saying this is good for everywhere. Like, I don't think this is probably as profitable in lower population densities, but we're in Orlando. Events happen every other day. Just 2 days ago, Electric Daisy Carnival EDC was in town, and they had tons of porta-johns. So somebody made a bag off of that event alone, and I think in an area like this, couldn't hurt to have a bit of a business presence there.
And there's little festivals and things happening all the time where we live and in a lot of big cities. So it's going to depend on what city you live in for some of these things. But in general, we think that these dirty jobs can make a lot of profit. So let's dig in a little bit.
Let's go.
Why don't we? So the first business that we wanted to take a look at, this is a little bit of a unique thing. I wanted to look at something a little bit outside of the box. First one that we have to look at here is crime scene cleaning. This could be real dirty. I mean, a crime scene inherently is probably going to be very often a pretty brutal, gory mess.
Yeah, this is one of those where it's as business gets better, you normally do think about maybe it is a weird dichotomy. The better business is the worse of the place you're probably in. But in a city, though, it's kind of a mixed bag because of the density. There's always going to be crime. There's always going to be, accidents, not necessarily crime-driven accidents, but just, somebody crashes a car, something horrible happens, and they got to go, tape off the areas and clean up. So it is a weird business that I feel like people overlook. And if you have the stomach and the mental fortitude for it, you can do pretty well.
That's right. I think it's going to take a lot of stomach and a lot of mental fortitude. But the 30% or so profit margin that it looks like this business is making is pretty solid. Those are good profit margins. It's nothing insane, nothing to freak out about. But I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, you're going to just make good, solid profit.
And obviously, SDE is not what you put into your pocket at the end of the year, but it's a fairly good gauge of where it might fall. So even if you're within half of that, you're doing very well.
They make a great point here, which is that it's recession. They say recession proof. I would actually go so far as to say that's probably true for a business like this.
Might
Usually,
only
I
be
won't
the
ever
real
say
one.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
crime
won't.
doesn't stop.
I almost won't ever say that, but I mean, during a recession, crime probably increases. So if you're in something, I mean, crime never stops, death never stops, taxes never stop. Those are some absolutes. So if you've got a business based around those, you're going to do pretty decent. And you're going to be working with, they say, federal, local, state, and county law enforcement agencies, municipalities, property management companies, homeowners. A lot of it is they also do hoarding jobs. So it sounds like there's a junk cleaning or a junk removal kind of clean out aspect of this. Very interesting. Yeah, this is a fascinating type of business.
Well, I think hoarding might be a little bit different because normally if they're getting called into a hoarding job, somebody probably died in the house because of the hoarding, so it's a little bit different, I'm sure, than just straight junk removal. But if you knew somebody who did crime cleaning and you have a junk removal, might be a good partnership or might be a good referral network. But yeah, if you can stomach the sight of blood and work some, probably you're not working 9 to 5. You're probably working the graveyard shift most days with crime scene cleanup. But you can do fairly well for yourself. You are going to have to also work with law enforcement extensively to not contaminate crime scenes and to do some, make sure if you're in there cleaning up, make sure everything's good. But you can do all right for yourself.
This is a good reminder not to rely on Google or AI too much. I looked up just what the average profit margins on crime scene cleanup are. The first line is the average profit margin for crime scene cleanup can range from 50% to over 100%. That makes sense. So, I mean, we'll just go off of this one business that we see listed, but 30% profit, that's pretty solid. It's a good place to be.
I think in a business like this where you're basically just really intense cleaning, that's about in alignment with a cleaning company. You're coming in, you're disposing of stuff.
Maybe a little higher than like a regular cleaning company.
Possibly. I think, again, it's all about how you structure it. I think as an individual starting out, if you're trying to build this, you're going to have a much harder time than going into an established network with connections, because I think this is a heavily not friendly to people who don't have ties to law enforcement, because you do need them to hire you for these jobs.
Now, one thing that I'll say about this is you might end up spending less on marketing for a company like this than for a lot of different other businesses, because these things are just happening. Like, you get a good foothold in with some of the law enforcement agencies with something like this, especially if you buy one and they already have those relationships.
Yeah,
you get that foothold in, and I think you're really just taking advantage of something that is an ongoing stream, and you probably don't have to spend much on being like the sexiest, flashiest crime scene cleanup business out there. So I think this is a pretty good one. What do you think about this deal? What would you grade it?
I'd give it a solid as a business makeup. I'd say it's probably how many people work in that thing?
2 employees.
My owner might be one of them. So give it a solid B. I think it falls into our category list. If we were putting this on the tier list, it'd be in the B category. While it is pretty, recession proof, I think the barrier to entry is pretty big, and you'd have to make sure a lot of relationships were kept on the transfer, because if you lose those, everything else is going to go with it. You got that face on. What you looking at?
The way it's written, they're trying to hype it up too much. That's always a little bit of a red flag. The one big thing I'll say is it sounds a little bit spread out and distracted. They're also saying crime scene and hoarding cleanup business, which offers 50 to 60% profit margins. Not true. We see that based on the numbers. They just sound a little bit distracting. A large portion is hoarding jobs. I mean, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but I would like to see, I think I would grade it a little bit higher if it was just the crime scene and they were doing it strictly based off of that. Just operationally, it sounds like a little bit all over the place. But altogether, looks like you can make a lot of money in crime scene cleanup.
assuming you've also branched out a bit, it seems, but looks like there's a lot of opportunity in the space, and that if you have a good network, that you can really you can do well for yourself.
So the next one we're going to look at is a lot dirtier than that. This is septic service. So there's especially in Florida where we're from, there are a lot of septic tanks out there still. So this is essentially servicing any septic tanks that have issues, backups, or anything like that. And it looks like, let's run some quick numbers on this one. It looks like it's doing gross revenue on a yearly basis of about 2,750,000. And it looks like the cash flow is, let's go off the EBITDA number. Actually, it looks like the EBITDA is about 637. So we'll go 637, 339 over 2.75 million. So it's about 23% margins. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good cost ratio given what they're probably putting into everything. So I would say that at a price of, what is that?
They're asking for 2.9 million.
That's not.
They've got $400,000 of real estate included, and 700,000 of furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, and $80,000 worth of inventory.
Okay, so a little over $1 million of that price. Okay, so with that in mind, that's a pretty good price, I would say.
That's actually a really good price, I would say, too. Yeah, so I would grade this a very highly rated deal from what I'm saying. From what I'm seeing, 14 employees, probably a good bit of removal of the owner.
A lot of equipment to manage. I think depreciation on that balance sheet is going to be something to look out for, especially with the amount of trucks and vehicles they likely have. So you might get a bit more of a deal if you can argue the depreciation aspect if they haven't factored that into the price, but it looks fairly clean. No pun intended.
It does. In general, one thing I like about the septic industry is it's very high ticket price. So you're not doing a whole ton of volume of jobs. So, you don't have to be super organized operationally. You just have to have a good solid team that can run through your jobs pretty consistently. I think you benefit from the same thing as with the crime scene cleanup that we talked about before here, specifically though, which is there's just not a lot of people out there that want to get into this or want to do this because it's a really, really dirty job. So I think this is a really great industry to be in.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm going to put this up there in A with the rest of the kind of trade businesses that we ranked. I think it's going to be a business where people who, it's like, if and I think a lot of times people will roll this into a business that's plumbing or some sort of cleaning thing because, man, if your septic has backed up and you've ever had to deal with that, how awful that experience is. So if you can get a regular, cleaning done when, on a schedule, just get that going. It's so insanely important. So it's one of those ones where when you're thinking about, like, it's just like a roof. You need a roof over your head and your septic clean. Like, you're never not going to be able to do this because otherwise it's going to get bad.
It's true. It's a really easy sales process too. I mean, customers might shop around a little bit, but if you've got decent prices, you're able to compete in the market. It's something you can't go without. So I like this a lot. Just low operational drag because of a lot of that stuff. This is an industry I think would be great to be in. And then the last one that we're going to look at today, this is a really big business that's for sale and a very interesting industry too. So this is portable toilet and roll-off rental business. So they're renting out porta potties and roll-off dumpsters. So very dirty stuff.
Yeah, this is you're doing both junk removal and waste removal essentially at the same time. So it's a wombo combo, I'd say. And I think the price, it seems insane, but I think when you look at the cash and the SDE, you understand why they're able to ask that much. I mean, what are they pulling in? 7 million, they said?
So they're bringing in about 8.5 million a year in sales, and they're doing about 2.5 in margin on that. So They're right about a 29% profit margin. Those are great margins for the size of that
Yeah.
business. Not amazing margins, but they're great margins for that size. And another thing that's included here that has to be factored in. This is a pretty big deal. $5 million worth of furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. That's a lot of trucks. It's a lot of these are very large trucks too. It's a lot of
a third of this purchase price is just the equipment to run it. So then when you even consider that, you're at a very fair multiple. You do 8 million, you're asking for 10 million essentially. We do 8 million in sales, and if you're just going off the sales figure, they want a little more than what they do in sales.
They want about 4 times on the earnings of the company, on the average earnings,
which they're still going to get beat up on. They could probably get close to, but everybody looks for a deal, and there's probably some wiggle room there, especially with if depreciation isn't factored in, you can definitely eat the depreciation off of the price. One thing I will say about this is that we don't often see businesses of that magnitude up here, because normally if a business is doing that much, it's usually a private sale because of just inter competition and stuff. But if that's coming to free market, that's probably a big sign that they weren't getting what they were asking, or that this guy is purely just ready to be done with this. He doesn't, there could be a myriad of factors, but this is a rare one to see on a market. And I think they reflect that.
It is. There is a lot of assets here. I'm looking at the description because it breaks it down. There are 3,000 portable toilets, 3,000, 150 roll-off dumpsters, and 31 trucks. Let's break that down a little bit. This is actually very interesting. So let's break down a little bit. What does a porta potty usually cost? What is your guess?
I'm going to say about $2,500.
It's not a bad guess. Let's see. Oh, looks like it can range all over the place. Looks like it's more like $900.
That's it?
Yeah.
Like the ones I see at festivals?
Yeah.
And now this is going to sound bad, but I wonder what the used market is like for these, because honestly, I mean, look, have you ever been in one of those and been like, wow, this is so clean? No, you've never. I have never been like that. So it's like,
no.
If I'm buying used, it looks like every other one.
Standard is like anywhere from 600 to 1,000. Luxury is more luxury. Portable toilet is 800 to 1,000. Standard $600 to $800.
Damn. So you could buy a bunch of that with what I was thinking.
I'm thinking, so obviously these ones are used. Let's put them at half price if they're used, and let's add this up a little bit, because I'm always fascinated to see, like, they're listing $5 million worth of equipment. They're probably listing what they paid for it, right? So it's not actually probably worth that much, but 3,000, that's a lot. Let's say that they're worth half of 700, 350, right?
Go with that.
3,000 times 350. That is $1 million worth of porta potties.
That's a lot.
So remember that number, 1,050,000. 150 roll-off containers.
Those are expensive.
Those are expensive. I know the used market for those a little bit. They're 2,000 to 3,000. So let's say 2,500. Let's say 2,000 if they're used. Right?
Well, if we're splitting the difference, let's do 2,500.
Let's do 2,500. So 150 times 2,500. That's another 375K. So
our 1.4.
So yeah, remember 1.4, and then 31 trucks. If they're all roll-off trucks, which it sounds like they are from the way that they're describing it, we're actually looking at buying a roll-off truck right now for about 75K. Depends on the size of these, obviously, but let's say, I mean, they're going to be used and depreciated a little bit as well. Let's say average of 65K.
Fine.
Something like that. Maybe a little bit less than that, because they're probably a little bit more used. Let's say average of 60.
Well, yeah, okay, let's go 60K.
So 60K times 31. That's another 1.8.
So 1.2. So we're at the $3.2 million mark, and
they're saying 5.
Yeah. So, which, I mean, hey, you know what?
They're probably inflating it a little bit.
Definitely a little bit. At least from our end, unless like they just bought a bunch of brand new trucks, maybe they recently bought some newer equipment and they're tacking that on there. So there could be some ways where they might,
because because new, those roll-off trucks could be more like 125.
Yeah, so I mean, some of them might now be worth 60K. Maybe they bought a couple new ones. So
let's even say 70K average.
Okay,
a little bit more generous.
Yeah,
I mean, you never know. We're throwing darts at a board here, but that would put it at more like 2.17 plus our 1.4. That's about 3.57.
I think there's definitely quite a bit of room on the FF&E.
So that puts the actual leftover of what's attributed to like a multiple on the earnings at about 11.38. 11.38 divided by your about 2.509. It's about a 4.5 times multiple. That's actually still pretty good for that's about right for this size and this you could probably even go for a 5x multiple or maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the thing that this place has, if they're looking at this correctly, is that they have multiple streams, and odds are they have a lot of clientele that they work with regularly, or they have people who know them and probably work with them frequently in contracts, not just one contract. They probably have a lot of them, or probably a lot of connections to the area. So that's really where you can start to charge these, get these higher multiples. When you have a large sweeping span of businesses that you work with and complementary services, like, where there's junk, there's normally a porta potty because construction sites and all this other stuff. So, it's not uncommon, especially if music festivals, porta potties, and then some dumpsters in the back for all the vendors to throw their stuff out in. Like, there's a lot of stuff about this that works out well. If they were servicing just new construction, though, and it was only, one construction company, now we're really cutting off that price, because I can't actually trust that business model too much to be what I need it to be if you're gone. So if these guys have a large swath of customers that they work with frequently and they're all over, then I think certainly that's well within their right to ask for that.
One thing I will say is we set out on today's video to try to figure out what some of the most profitable dirty businesses were. And it sounds like this is a really good one to be in. They hit about 30% profit margins. I'm sure they benefit from a lot of economies of scale and that sort of thing. But 30% profit margins, something that you can scale up a lot. I mean, clearly they've been able to add a lot of equipment pretty reliably. Seems like a great business to be in.
Oh, yeah. I think there's no question this is a good one. I mean, I think if you're trying to get even smaller scale, dog poop pickup companies, they're all over the place. They're everywhere. People are always hiring them because the opportunity to not have to do that, people jump at. So on a small scale, even those have been popping off. I see those everywhere now.
It's true. Yeah. So, I mean, I think we can say conclusively, dirty jobs are some of the most profitable to be in.
Yeah, the actually non-sexy jobs, because I promise you, nobody's ever going to do a well-edited YouTube video or short about the sexiest dirty jobs that I can do that in my business. Nobody's ever going to do that. So if you want to do something, I think if you're getting into something, you're looking for some of those sneaky industries that probably don't get blown up. Think about what the most disgusting, necessary things are that people need, and just start looking those up, because odds are somebody's going to want to sell them.
Think specifically about the things that need to be done that no one wants to do themselves.
Yeah, not just
messing with your septic, cleaning a crime scene, doing porta potty rentals, dealing with porta potties. That's just stuff that people don't want to deal with.
No, and you might not want to deal with that yourself, but do you want to deal with that much money? What's more important for you? So
there you go.
I think that's where we're at.
Well, for all you out there trying to make some money, hopefully you can find some profitable stuff to get into just like this. Maybe dirty stuff is the answer, but we will see you next time on the Deal Flow Live podcast, where we talk about all things businesses for sale, selling, trading hands, buying businesses. And we like to focus on these boring, dirty, unsexy businesses because there's a lot of money in them. So we'll see you on the next one. And thanks for tuning in.
See you.